Dr. Rashmi.
Hello and good evening to everyone. A warm welcome to everyone to today's session. I'm Dr. Rashmi Shankar, an associate consultant at Apollo Spectral Hospitals and your patron for today. It's an honor to be a part of this amazing platform of SPOC, and today's clinical meet is about role of immunity in preventing cancer. Now, let me introduce you all to Dr. Poonam Maurya. She's a consultant medical oncologist at Bangalore KIMS and at Apollo Hospitals with a special interest in integrative oncology. She has various academic distinctions as well as various publications. Now, ma'am, I'd like to ask you to take over the session.
Thank you, Rashmi, for the introduction. Today we are from the organization SPOC. This is the Society for Prevention of Cancer. We are going to introduce you to a very amazing session, Understanding the Stress, Immunity and Cancer by Dr. Nanda Rajneesh. She is the main founder person and the main idea behind this organization. What is this organization about? The SPOC, Society for Prevention of Cancer, was initiated by Dr. Nanda with a keen interest to spread awareness about the cancer itself, what are its risk factors, and how to prevent. Prevention is our key factor. As you see, prevention comes in the name as well as SPOC. So prevention of how can we prevent cancer, as well as how can we prevent the recurrence of cancer once when the cancer has occurred in a patient. These are the two main key factors with which the organization was set up. And there are many programs which have been done by this organization, mainly conferences, awareness talks like this, so that it reaches a lot many people and they become aware of what to do, what not to do. Also, this is a program not only for general, but also for the physicians and the general practitioners who get a very value insight into what is SPOC and how can we prevent cancer really. Can we prevent and can we not? So today's session is a very unique session about immunity. There's a lot of research already in this area. And you must have heard that now we have immunotherapy dealing with cancer. Yes, so how our own body's immunity can help in dealing with cancer. This is a very important topic. And let us hear from Dr. Nanda Rajneesh how we can deal with our stress and how can our own policeman, our own immunity help to fight this cancer. Dr. Nanda Rajneesh needs no introduction. She's the main founder person of this organization. She's a consultant GI and laparoscopic surgeon and a surgical oncologist with a keen interest for prevention of cancer. Thank you, ma'am. Just you can start now.
Thank you, Poonam. Rashmi, I will start now. Good evening, everybody. I chose this topic, understanding stress, immunity, and cancer, because there's a huge connection between stress and cancer itself. Because there's a huge vicious cycle of stress inducing cancer is one part, and the amount of stress during cancer, how it helps in even progression of the disease, increasing the disease and recurrence of the disease too. So I included stress in the topic. And we know that we all don't study this basic science in this depth level. A lot of our patients come and ask us, why did I get the disease? So we focus a lot as the physicians and during studies as students also, we focus a lot on how disease happens, pathology, pathophysiology, but we never focus so much on how disease actually originated and how it progresses, pathophysiology. Though we study while treating, we do not focus so much on it. So I take this slide starting from the stress, the meaning of stress, and what is the connection between stress and immunity, this neurology, neurobiology, and connection between neurobiology and again immunity, and immunity and stress again. So I'll be connecting them. I'll also be discussing a little bit about immunity. I'll start from basic science, and then I'll take it forward to connection between immunity and cancer itself. So now to start with stress, in our ancient literature, it said chintayascha chitayascha bindu matram vishishyate chita dahati nirjivam chinta dahati jivanam. There is one small dot difference between chitta and chinta. So chinta is just a worry that burns the living being, and chitta is the funeral pyre. The dead body is burned. Yeah, we all know this. So, but what happens in stress? It's a huge negative emotional state that creates a host of reactions in the body, chemical reactions and hormonal reactions also in the body. Okay, it has stress always has a negative connotation, but here I like to tell you a little bit about there is a small part of positive connotation to the stress also. We'll talk about it as we go forward. So there are what are the different stresses? One is acute stress. In my surgical specialty surgery, I do is an acute stress. And people who suffer from disease is an acute stress, loss of something at that time is acute stress. And this stress goes on forever. Like if the infection continues for a long time, it becomes a chronic stress. And any traumatic injury that continues for a very long time, it becomes a chronic stress. It could be, stress could be starting from our own body, inside the body, or it could be an external loss of something, worrying about something that's happening to the kith and kin. So this comes from external stress. But in the end, it is totally coming internally, and it is connection between the physical body and the mind, nervous system. So what is this stress neurobiology? So when there is a stress, there is both psychological and physical stressors are released there. There's a stress response, we call it. There is hypothalamic pituitary axis gets activated, sympathetic adrenomedullary axis also gets active. Both are getting activated, and there is a huge reactions that happen in the whole part of the body, and different organs get affected in a different way. I will not go to the in detail how each organ is getting affected, because my topic is mainly on immunity and cancer. So we know that every organ gets affected by the stress, okay, in different ways, because the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system getting activated. So now we will take to what is immunity here. Immunity is defined as all the physiological mechanisms that enable an individual body to recognize material as a foreign body and neutralize, eliminate, and metabolize them without injury to its own tissue. Now we have innate immunity and adaptive immunity. And we have another system, lymphatic system. Innate immunity is a naturally present at birth, and it is non-specific, it is rapid, it is immediate, first line of defense, unlimited, and it has a very low potency, and it has no memory. Adaptive immunity is like vaccinations we give. So it is an acquired or low dose of infection persistently coming in, and specific, it is slow, and it has high potency, and long-term memory is present for this. So what are the innate immunity? One is anatomical barrier, phagocytic barriers that are already present in the body because it is immediate, right? Blood proteins, complements, interferons, cytokines, interleukins, tumor necrosis factors. Then adaptive immunity, one is humoral immunity and the other one is cell-mediated immunity. So we have one B cell immunity that where there is IgA, IgM, IgG, Ig, IgD antibodies, neutralization of the toxins, opsonization, ingestion of the bacteria, all this takes place with humoral immune system. Cell-mediated immunity plays a huge role in cancer immunity, and it involves T cell help, CD4 cells, CD8 cells, MHC1, MHC2 cells, removal of virus-infected cells, and elimination of tumor cells and transplant rejections. All this comes in adaptive immunity. We have again two in that, active immunity and passive immunity. We know that details. Now, lymphatic system, it's another important immune system in the body. We all think, what does a lymphatic system do? It takes the cancer cells, it takes antigens, but actual mechanism of lymphatic system is the connection with the nervous, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous innervation coming on the lymphatic system and helping in recognizing the antigen and antigens. Basically, it helps in recognizing the antigens. It improvises that. Now, what is the connection between nervous system and immune system? One connection is neurotransmitters. Okay, it is a bidirectional connection because neurotransmitters released in the nervous system can be same to that of that in the immune system and nervous system. They're same. Okay, many of the neurotransmitters are similar and same. So one gets affected, the other can also get affected. That's one thing. The other connections are the T cell and dendritic cells express the receptors for neurotransmitters classically seen in the nervous system. That is glutamine receptors, acetylcholine receptors, serotonin receptors, dopamine receptors, adrenergic receptors. And the other third one I said is autonomic nervous system. It's a source of neurotransmitters. They again affect the lymphoid tissue, in turn lead to innervation of the primary lymphoid organs and regulation of generation and differentiation of new lymphoid cells and myeloid cells. Also helps in influencing the antigen presentation, T cell differentiation, and affects the immune response initiation and development. Now, what are the theories that link between stress and immune system? We'll discuss a little bit of this here. First theory, this is one of the common theories that this is discussed. Here, there is an alarm stage. Whenever there is a stress, the body reacts immediately, fight, flight response. It is an acute manifestation. Then there is a resistance phase. Body channelizes all its resources by secreting further hormones. And in third stage is exhaustion stage. There is no more raw material left. And so then what happens? This is a burnout. So when there is a burnout, immunity gets affected. Okay. So now second theory is, according to this is based on cortisol response. So in this theory, what it says is the cortisol level initially increases when there is short-term stress. And when there is a long-term stress, cortisol disappears from the body. The diurnal cycle, that is biological clock, is disturbed in the body, and so hormonal imbalances will start. So what this theory says is, let us say if a person is having acute recurrent stress, repeated small amount of acute stress, like how you have repeated infections, low doses when it is given, he will not develop blown up diseases. Like that, repeated acute stress, his tolerance will increase. So that means immunity will increase. Immunity will become better for him. So this is an explanation for it. In acute stress, basically what is happening? There is increase in the circulating WBCs, redistribution of the immune cells, and there is increase in the innate and non-specific immune responses, and any surge and increased NK cell activity, increased cortisol for a short duration and suppresses the inflammatory cytokines. See, that means there is increasing immunity in the acute stress, short-term stress. But when the stress becomes chronic, there is decrease in the circulating WBCs, decrease in the innate and non-specific immune responses, decrease in the cytotoxic ability of NK cells, suppresses the NK cell production, and eventual overload of cortisol suppresses the HPA axis and results in reduced cortisol secretion again. This leads to increased pro-inflammatory cytokines. So that same thing continuation here, acute stress decreases the specific immunity. Specific immunity is very important for us, and decreases the Th1 cellular immune response, because specific immunity is a stronger immune system, good immune system, and Th2 humoral immune system. Okay, increases the Th2 humoral immune system. Okay, now chronic stress suppresses the lymphocyte production, decreases both Th1 cellular and Th2 humoral immune responses. So there is an imbalance here. Okay, and decreases the antibodies and reactivation of the latent viruses. Systemic inflammation increases and specific immunity is suppressed. Okay. Now, let us start from what is cancer. So we all know that we study cancer as a cell that is multiplying very fast and it is spreading. Okay. But let us go to the basics, because we all keep saying everywhere there are millions of cancer cells are producing round the clock. Because we studied a cancer cell as a mutated cell, and there are multiple mutated cells producing in the body round the clock. Our body kills those mutated cells by apoptotic mechanisms. But when that cell dies, a new cell comes from tiny stem cells, isn't it? So we all study up to this. So, but what we don't want to focus on is there is a huge balance between the growth and death. Just to give you an example, in a monthly periodical cyclical time itself, we have both proliferation and differentiation taking place. So in this period, differentiation time, the proliferated cell, abnormal cells die, and during differentiation, the good cells stay on. And again, the proliferation starts with cyclical pattern in the breast itself. This is happening. So every body cell, the same thing is happening, and which is very well explained by Yin Yang theory, which states that all things in the universe, from A to Z, every whole universe is governed by opposing yet interdependent forces. Any disruption to this balance can lead to dysfunction. When this balance is disrupted, abnormal or damaged cells can ignore apoptotic mechanism. This is a basic mechanism that happens, but there are huge reactions, that immunological reactions that happen whenever there is a malignant cell. Because once the cell starts growing, there are so many factors are getting released, then the signals, none of these balancing signals may not work. Okay, and multiply without the aid of any growth signals. Now, what is the hallmark of cancer? I like this slide. I'll just take you through this slide. Hallmark of cancer is sustaining proliferative signaling, avoiding immune destruction, evading growth suppressors, activating invasion and metastasis, enabling replicative immortality, inducing angiogenesis, genomic instability and mutation, tumor promoting inflammation, deregulating cellular genesis, resisting cell death. So whole set of processes are happening in a cancer cell, because it's just not one cancer cell. Multiple cancer cells are producing multiple factors which help in this process, and it helps in cancer cell survival. So let us start from initiation of a cancer cell. Let us say you have a normal tumor, and then there is an initiation. Okay, initiation to a, see, because we always study cancer not coming from just one process, two-hit theory, no? It starts as an unspecialized abnormal cell. It applies to most of the cancers in the body, starts as an abnormal benign growth, which multiplies, and it again multiplies, and it grows, and it spreads, okay? Now, see, when you have a multiple abnormal cells, arrow hits one of those abnormal cells easily. Okay, so how do I say that? So when there are multiple abnormal cells, one of the cell can become abnormal very quickly. All right. So to explain this in another way, there is a genetic and environmental influence. We always describe that, only 15% of the cancers develop because of the genetic reason. Most of the cancers come from the environmental influence. So cancer comes because of multifactorial influence on the cell. So first hit happens, okay, and disrupts the cellular development, and vulnerable to second hit, improper lifestyle, diet, carcinogens, and radiation. So we agree with carcinogens and radiation. Diet and improper lifestyle we know, but how we don't know. We'll discuss this in the last few of my slides. And completely, there is a second hit theory which leads to again. So that's why it is multifactorial lifestyle influence that leads to disruption in the compensatory mechanisms, transformation, and tumorogenesis. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting slide I like to talk about, because there is a stress, and there is a stress in cancer itself, because stress factors are present because of the stress and cancer. Stress factor promotes the most of the hallmarks of cancer through by impacting many things. Okay, how it impacts, how stress impacts, we know. I showed one slide, each organ gets affected by the stress for different reason. So because the organ is affected, the tumor cell that is growing in that organ also gets affected. That is the first thing. Okay, so malignant tissue gets affected because that organ is affected. Then the tumor microenvironment also gets affected directly and indirectly, and there is an immune imbalance due to stress. We saw that. And that immune imbalance also in turn affects the tumor cells, and there is a lymphatic flow disturbance, because the lymphatics gets blocked, blockage of the lymphatics, and circulation also getting blocked. And you know that there is a microthrombosis also that's happening in the venous system. All this put together will lead to the disturbed again the microenvironment of the tumor itself, distant metastasis and pre-metastatic niche. So it becomes a vicious cycle. So stress and cancer becomes a vicious cycle. We know that when there is a malignancy, there is so much of stress factor within the person itself. Psychologically stressed, and there is a dysregulated HPA axis activity, promotes a depression, sleep disturbance, cancer-related fatigue will happen. And that in turn will lead to, again, cancer initiates stress by exaggerated tumor growth and spread, peripheral stress, inflammatory cytokines, feedback to CNS, altering cognition, mood, and facilitating stress responses. In our country, there is a lot of stress because of financial stress, relationships, so many stresses can happen. Removal of organ stress. The huge stress impact is a vicious cycle in cancer. Now, what is immunology in cancer? Let us see. I'll be discussing mechanism by which the immune system recognizes a tumor, effective mechanism against tumors, and immunosurveillance and immunoediting, tumor escape mechanisms, immunotherapy, can we manipulate immune system to kill tumors? Now, historically, one of the 1943, this study was published, showed the proof of specific immunity against experimental tumors. In this, basically, absence of cross protection against other related cancers and dominant immune response was against unique tumor antigens was present. So this was shown in one of the mice study, animal experiment model. So they injected a tumor cells and the tumor started growing. And again, the tumor was removed and it was injected again. Tumor started growing again. So if you challenge with the same tumor again and again, after removal of the tumor, if you're challenging again with the same tumor, no tumor grows. Whereas if you inject another tumor cells, the tumor grows. Okay. So this is what is the study. This is another one. This is a Boone and tumor theory. This is there is a mutational event resulting in a new antigen that stimulates a stronger immune response initially, but at least one antigen was shared between the two tumor variants. And CD8 are important effector cells mediating the tumor rejection. Now, there is evidence of tumor and immunity. We all know this part, regression of some tumors spontaneously, like melanoma and lymphomas. Regression of metastasis after removal of primary tumor. That pulmonary metastasis from renal cancers. So we have seen this. Infiltration of tumors by lymphocytes and macrophages, melanoma and breast cancers. Lymphocyte proliferation in draining lymph nodes. We see this routinely. We all know there is some connection between tumor immunity, but we don't want to go to depth of it. Now, how does the immunity tries to do the surveillance of the cancer cells? Means round the clock it is tracking the cancer cells, no? So we'll look into that. Now, how does it do? Tumors produce antigen that evoke an immune response. Lymphocytes act as a sentinels in recognizing and eliminating nascent transformed cells. Immunosurveillance inhibits carcinogenesis and maintains the cellular homeostasis. Now, what is this immunoediting theory? So we know that the tumor develops in phases. So in phase 1, tumor arising in a tissue are recognized and eliminated at an early stage by immune cells itself, both innate and adaptive, because we have certain innate NK cells. We'll discuss that as we go forward, and adaptive mechanism. And there is an equilibrium. The cancers, initially the tumor cells may get completely eliminated. It may never come back. But if lifestyle factor or influence of promoters or risk factors for cancers is still persisting, or if the cancer cell is evaded, then it reaches a stage of equilibrium. It goes into static mode. Okay, so in breast cancer, we also have another method of transfection theory, where the tumor gene gets transfected, the mutated gene gets transfected, and it goes and sits with in the form of macrophages material into bones or different parts of the body. So the transfection also can happen here, equilibrium phase. It can remain static and suddenly, again, the risk factors are persisting, then it can come back. So this is what one of the explanation for breast cancer. After 10 years also, when a woman is treated very well for 10 years, no cancer. You've been doing PET scan evaluation. Suddenly there is a pop-up of bone metastasis or liver metastasis. So this is explained by this equilibrium theory. That is one of the method is transfection theory, but the dormant, the cells can remain dormant and it may not grow, and again it may escape, and cancer cell escape the killing mechanism and recruit regulatory cells to protect it, eventually replicating to clinically detectable tumors. This is about same immune elimination. This has been described here, elimination. See, the cancer cells get eliminated due to both innate and adaptive immune systems, and some are getting, one cell is just remaining dormant, and again it can grow, multiply. Okay, and it is they can remain as a variant cells, and it can grow. Okay. So the next immune mechanism is tumor antigen mechanism. Tumors have certain antigens which they present to the immune system in the body. Tumor specific antigens, tumor associated antigens. Okay. Tumor specific antigens are unique to the tumor cells, never in the normal cell. So this is quite strong immune mechanism. Results from mutation in the normal cellular gene, and tumor associated antigens not unique to the tumor cells, and normal cellular protein aberrantly expressed. Reactivation of the embryonic genes increase their expression, tyrosinase in melanomas, and antigens of oncogenic viruses, DNA viruses, RNA viruses, and the oncofetal antigens expressed in cancer and normal fetal tissues, CA in colon and other cancers, alpha fetoproteins, HCC, and inflammatory conditions. Now, tumor surveillance effectors. So what are these? What are these effectors which do the surveillance of the tumor? One is macrophages, dendritic cells, attack or they present antigens, CD8 cells, cytotoxic T cells, mediated cell-mediated immunity, this is, and natural killer cells are very important cells for immune system. The good biological clock maintains a good number of natural killer cells in the body, which is very, very important for tumor immunity, and antibody-dependent cell-mediated cytotoxicity. So we'll just see this step by step, how it happens, okay? So dendritic cells, this is a kind of innate immunity. Macrophages and dendritic cells are present all the time, and it is immediate, and a lot of factors are produced, and the cell is destroyed, okay? Dendritic cells and macrophages can either attack the tumor cell phagocytosis and release lytic molecules and free radicals and TNF factors. So, or they also do the tumor cell antigen presentation. Directly, macrophages can destroy the directly they can destroy the macrophages, or they can help in tumor antigen mechanism. It gets presented to the macrophages and it gets killed. Okay. So next is CD8 cell cytotoxic T cell mediated cytotoxicity. Here also there is specific antigen is produced. The tumor cells present their antigens using MHC class 1 receptors on the surface, recognized by T cell receptors on cytotoxic T cells, release cytolytic granules, perforins, granzyme B, which causes necrosis, apoptosis of the tumor cells, ligation of Fas on the target cell, and is an which can initiate the apoptosis, that's self-killing of the cells. And CD4 cells also release cytokines which activate CTLs. Natural killer mechanism. Basically, it recognizes the tumor cells via receptors that recognize the loss of expression of the MHC1 molecule, therefore detecting the missing cell common in cancers. Okay, and upon recognition of cancer cells, they secrete pore-forming granule perforin into immunological synaptin regions, causing tumor cell lysis. Also activate dendritic cells by producing interferon gamma and increases their access to the tumor antigen, thus enhancing the tumor immunogenicity. So basically what happens, there is an NK cell here and there's a target cancer cell. So it basically activates the killing of this cell through different mechanisms here. Antibody-dependent cell-mediated cytotoxicity. B cells can recognize specific antigens on tumor cells and produce antibodies against it. These antibodies, as a part of humoral immune system, can act to limit and contain infections and tumors. Typical effector cell is NK cell, which interacts with the IgG antibodies via Fc receptors, which bind Fc region of the antibody, and other cells known to mediate ADCC that is antibody-dependent cell-mediated cytotoxicity, macrophages and eosinophils and neutrophils. So basically antibody-dependent, the antibody recognition, antibodies of the tumor cells, it gets recognized and the tumor cell get killed. How does a tumor evade the immunity? See, if cancer has to happen, it has to evade the immunity, right? Tumor can evade immune system due to immune responses must kill all tumor cells, right? And tumors grow rapidly. They're so rapidly going, they outstrip the immune defenses. Immune responses against tumor may be weak because many tumor antigens are weakly immunogenic, may differ very slightly from self-antigens. Growing tumors also develop specific mechanisms to evade immune responses. So what are the different mechanisms? One is loss of T cell recognition. Okay, so there is a tumor cell and there's a tumor cell and the T cell, there's a tumor cell here. The T cell recognition gets lost here. See, the T cell recognition doesn't happen because there's something coming in between, or there is no antigens at all. Okay, both the reasons it can happen. Next is another method it can get evade is tumor antigen may be inaccessible to the immune system because in between something else is coming and attaching to that. It is not accessible at all. See, the tumor antigen, this is a tumor antigen. It is not accessible to this. Okay, the CD cells or T lymphocytes. Third mechanism, tumor may engage molecules that inhibit immune responses. So it may come across a different molecule and it will block the functioning of, see, if a tumor has to get killed, it should have this crossing, but that crossing is happening, but there's another crossing coming. So it's avoiding. Okay, this is a tumor evasion mechanism. Tumor associated macrophages may get developed. Tumor associated macrophages, they create immunosuppressive tumor microenvironment by producing cytokines, chemokines, growth factors. This is a stress that is induced. So there is a lot of stress that is created due to reactions in that area. That reaction itself will prevent the surface receptors of the tumor itself. The tumor is blocking. Okay. So is there cancer immunotherapy? We all know it's very helpful. Monoclonal antibodies, naked versus conjugated mAb therapy that we are using, trastuzumab, and then oncolytic virus therapies, therapeutic cancer vaccines, antigen versus dendritic cells versus DNA vaccines, cytokines, interleukins and interferons, and checkpoint inhibitors. Now, so I discussed about how cancer and immunity is connected. So how to build our immune system? So we talk about this. Two things. One is how to reduce stress in cancer patient itself. So we call it integrated therapy because it reduces stress in cancer patients. It builds immune system. You reduce the stress in cancer patient, it builds immune system. So basically, whatever integrated therapy that we do in cancer patients, basically it reduces the stress and builds up the immunity. So then it brings a balance between the stress and the immune system. How to tackle stress? We all know because it is very simple to advise, but actual cancer patients, how we can work on them is very important. Keeping the body in good physical and mental conditions seems to help in promoting the immune functions and combat the effect of stress. How to boost our immunity by doing a physical activity is very, very important. Good sleep, good biological clock, positive attitude, and social interactions. We'll discuss about one by one. Yoga, exercise, and meditation, basically, it balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, in turn reduces the cortisol level. That is, basically, it acts on the stress itself. Stress is reduced, maintains and in turn immunity is improved. Maintaining the balance, normalizes the hormones levels, improves the circulation and immune cell distribution and recruitment, improves the apoptotic mechanism. Okay. Balanced nutrition is very important. So you all know that intermittent fasting is known to prevent cancer cell formation itself. So because it increases the apoptotic mechanism. But balanced nutrition, how does it help? Basically, nutritional status is important contributing factor because it gives raw material to the immune system. So it improves our immune mechanisms in the body, and balancing between the brain and the immune system also will happen with the balanced nutrition. What happens exactly when you take a imbalanced nutrients? We always use the word antioxidant diet. I send this message a lot everywhere, antioxidant diet. So what does this antioxidant diet do? So when antioxidant diet is given, the antioxidant availability in the body increases. So a lot of raw materials for all mechanisms in the body is antioxidants. The raw materials for hormones is antioxidants. For immune system is antioxidants. So when there is an oxidant, and other thing that happens, one is raw material increases with the antioxidant diet. Okay, raw material to the immune system. Second thing that happens is whenever you take an oxidant diet, in simple words, any gassy foods, too much of building up of oxidants in our intestine that happens, what it does is it reacts to the cell membrane phospholipids. When it gets peroxidized, it easily allows the toxins to enter the cell, like let us say nicotine easily enters into the cell and does the DNA damage. Mutation it does very easily. Okay, so alteration of the membrane fluidity and results in disturbance in the cell functions. Okay. Now, antioxidants rich in vitamin E, C, beta carotene, zinc, and a lot of colored vegetables, phytogens, it is all known to be very good. Okay, that itself can become a whole lot of discussion, but let us go to the next step. Sleep and circadian rhythm is extremely important. For cancer patients, we say that sleep helps. So even in preventing cancer, sleep is very important. So sleep and circadian rhythm are strong regulators of immune processes. Neurobiology, as we said, immunity and brain are connected, stress and immunity are connected. You sleep well, your stress is less. Your stress is more, you don't sleep. We know that. There is a huge connection, we already know. And in sleep, we repair our body. That repair doesn't happen. So it causes chronic low-grade inflammation. Inflammatory factors are nothing but their oxidants. Oxidants again do the cellular damage and allow all the toxins, pesticides, chemicals to enter into the cell, isn't it? Now, positive attitude and happiness is very, very important. Optimism is associated with higher number of CD4 cells, better mood, higher number of helper T cells, higher natural killer cell cytotoxicity. Salivary IgA levels are high among people who indulge in humor. Anxiety causes, so to be humorous and funny also, your health has to be good. That's very important. Anxiety causes suppression of immune responses and stress hormone release. And happiness can release neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and beta endorphins, which improve cellular immunity. Now, how to again reduce stress? Because stress is connected with immune system, and stress relief is very, very important in cancer patients. In New Indian situations, we also see, I see a lot of breast cancer women who say, don't tell this relative, don't tell this friend, madam. Actually, there is a self-esteem, what others are going to think of. Oh, she hated me, what she'll think of me if I have a cancer. So these issues are very, very high. So there is a constant duality between how we see ourselves and how others see us. Okay, there's a confusion in terms of identity and self-esteem. So the stress can come down by increasing your self-esteem. The self-esteem, that is, it is important to know who you are and what you want to be with yourself, and it regulates the serotonin levels and makes you happy and alleviates the stress. So also when you have a lot of stress, it is very, very important to seek support, because we all have experienced, we are stressed, we roll up our body and hold ourselves like this, right? So there is a huge amount of oxytocin released. It is one of the neurohormone that is released when there is a lot of stress. So we also say even prolactin hormone is increased when there is a high stress. So very important that we reach out to relieve the stress. Stress response has a built-in mechanism for stress resilience, and that mechanism is a human connection. That is how we are different. But we see even animals, they just go just, they also have this actually oxytocin connection in their stress. So mind replays what heart can't delete. Keeping calm mind, positive attitude can go in a long way to alleviate stress. Thank you. Any questions? When I take any questions if they're there, Rashmi, you can end it.
Thank you, ma'am, for that very informative and instructive session. Any questions from the viewers?
Yeah. Dr. Nanda, this is Sujata.
Yes.
See, this beautiful session. One of the things you said was about the genetic, because one of the belief system is, if probably someone in the family has cancer, you are more prone to cancer. But what you said was, also that may be one of the factors, but also there are a lot of other people are affected with it. So is stress the major contributor?
See, the description of stress is internal stress within the body and external stress that we have an impact coming from outside. But see, stress is basically a huge connection between the brain and the body itself, and there are huge chemical reactions and hormonal reactions that are happening. So it has to be a gene mutation has to happen due to this stress, influence of this stress. So stress can be, just ingesting a lot of bad foods also can cause a lot of stress. We studied in our Bhagavad Gita, there is a sattvic diet with food, fruits, vegetables that you take that has a lot of fluids that keeps our mind calm. That means there is no stress. And Rajasic diet is something that increases your desires. Tamasic diet is something that increases your diseases in your body. So there is a huge connection between stress and cancers. Okay, but stress alone is not going to cause cancer. There has to be mutation that has to happen, and immunity has to get evaded in the body, then it happens. Like, for example, all smokers don't get cancer. Okay. But if there is a lot of stress associated with this lifestyle imbalances, the diet nutrition imbalances associated with that, then he's likely to get cancer. Or viruses, viruses, if he's infected with viruses. There are many factors that cause gene mutation. See, ultimately, 100% of the cancer happens because of the genetic mutation. Okay, that gene mutation. So I said the inherited genes. So what do I say? The inherited altered or abnormal genetic genes is causing cancer is only 15%. Okay. But 100% of the cancer cell should have a gene mutation.
Okay.
You got my answer, no, Sujata?
Yeah. I understood. Yeah. Thank you.
I assume there are no queries. Anyways, there's a recorded version of the webinar which will be available. So if you have any queries further, you all can ask Dr. Nanda. Thank you, ma'am, for this very informative session. Thank you all for your patient hearing. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.